Good evening, everybody. Welcome to CONDG for the night. I see we have some people in the chat already. Integer Man, what's up? The music, I don't remember. It was a Creative Commons tune that I found, and I can look it up for you if you want to know for sure. Just a nice little mellow countdown is what I was going for there. Meh, you don't really care. You're just kind of mildly curious. So welcome, everybody. We're going to get started here in a few minutes. And we've got Douglas standing by. Sorry. He can hear me right now. Messed up his name. But we're going to start here in a few minutes. So if you are, this is your first time here, you can take this time to create a Twitch account if you'd like to. And get signed in, because if you want to win the prizes and get involved in other stuff, you'll want to be able to hit that Twitch chat. Hey, I see Hansen 43206 is in the house again. Good to see you. Nicely done, Matthew. I don't know what I did nicely. Oh, mess up his name. I see what you're saying. Let me just make sure I've got everything turned on that I need to have turned on. So I've got viewer count. There's my viewer count. And do I have the chat on? Yes, I do. Chat is appearing on the screen. Yep. So we're good there. And okay. So, and the other thing is, if you want to get involved in winning some prizes, you're going to have to enter a chat message there into the channel. You could automatically enter the win just by putting a chat message in. It's a maximum one entry, but just at least put one in there so you enter to win some prizes today. So I'm going to take this time to get that Twitch account going if you haven't already. And this is also a way you can ask questions of our speaker, is in the Twitch chat. So we'll get started here in another 2 or 3 minutes. Give people a chance to roll in and sign up and log in and all that good stuff. And while you're waiting, you can also just follow some of these social media links here on the screen. Follow us on Twitter or on Facebook. I don't know actually if we post enough to Facebook, but you can follow us on Facebook. You can join the meetup if you go to condg.org. That'll take you to that link here on the bottom of the screen, which I'm trying to get out of the way of. But they both go to the same place. Join the meetup group so you can keep updated on all the events and happenings and where they're going to be and how we're going to be hosting them and so on. Okay. A few more minutes here. Just make sure that announcement did go out on Twitter. Looks like it did. Hey, there's Chibi Louv. Hello. Thank you for joining us. We're gonna be starting here in just a few minutes. Love equals love. Chibi love. Okay. Well, there's 2 U's. That's why I said Louv. Liberty for all. Howdy. How are you doing? Good to see you here. Alrighty. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started, if that's okay with y'all. I'm just going to go through the quick meeting slides here, do our normal announcements, and then I will hand it off to our speaker of the day. So again, make sure to follow all these great social media accounts up here. Get all the latest announcements. CONDG on Twitter, CONDG on Facebook, and conduct.org will take you to the meetup there. There's the full URL in case you want to take a screenshot of that. It's a lot to type in, but conduct.org will take you to the same place. Also, we have a YouTube channel now. So the videos are no longer hosted on my personal account. They're now hosted on the Conduct YouTube channel. We don't have a URL yet because we don't have enough subscribers. So that's the ugly URL right there, but I've also created a nice little bit.ly down there. I'll take you to the same place. It's a capital Y in the YouTube. So yeah, please subscribe so we don't have to have such an ugly URL and or bit.ly address. I think we need 100 subscribers to get there, which I totally think we can do. We've definitely had more than 100 people come through our doors, so to speak. So hit that subscribe. Would appreciate it. Capstone's taken your paws hostage. I don't know what that means, but that sounds bad. Thank you for posting that link there, Ingerman. I also want to just give one final shout out for the year to G2O. Even though we aren't able to meet in person, they've always been such great partners with us, going back to the days when we used to be called ICC. So just give them one more shout out for this year until we can meet in person. Really appreciate it, G2O, for being such great partners for us, even though we can't meet in your offices right now. And we're giving away some prizes today. So as I mentioned earlier on, if you throw a message into the Twitch chat there, you'll get entered automatically. You must be present to win at the end of the meeting today. We have a JetBrains license to give away and some Couchbase swag pack, whatever I can scrape up out of the prize closet here. I'll send you some stickers and water bottles and stuff like that. Some good stuff. And yes, JetBrains is a tremendous. That's the top prize. More details on that later. Some other groups in the area. You might want to check these out. If you're into Azure, check out the CO Azure, Central Ohio Azure Group. They are meeting virtually, I believe, still. Second Monday of every month. You can go follow them on Twitter and their meetup and so on. The App Dev User Group is also still meeting virtually, as far as I know. That's the third Monday of every month. They used to meet at Improving, but I think they're meeting either on Teams or Twitch or both these days. And the Pass group is still meeting as well. They're meeting virtually. That's the second Thursday. And they're meeting virtually as well. Check them out. The Let's Talk IT Columbus. This is the sort of the group for tech people about topics that are not tech, at least not directly. This is more about like professional development for BAs, QAs, developers, managers, that sort of thing. And they are still meeting online. For more information about that, you can check out this email address right here, aaron.petrie@improving.com, or you can find their meetup page. It's Let's Talk IT Columbus. Check them out. Here's a new piece of news for you. So the C# Advent is happening soon. The signups for that will actually open up tomorrow. So this is something that Calvin and I have been running the past 3 years, and every day 2 new pieces of C# content get published as an Advent gift to the developer community. So if you don't know what an Advent calendar is, you might just look up Advent calendar, just kind of understand the concept of that. Signups officially start tomorrow if you want to be one of the content creators, if you want to be someone who creates a blog post, a video, podcast episode, whatever it is. And then you create that content and you sign up for a day and you publish it on that day. And the benefit to this is that historically this results in a lot of traffic because every post links back to the main Advent page, kind of like an old-fashioned web ring, if you're old enough to remember those. So if you're looking to start a blog or start a podcast or just to boost your existing one, or just to give back to the community and get a little something going, share with the community, now's a great time to do that. So you can check out the site right now, actually, if you go to www.csadvent.christmas. Don't sign up tonight, though, please. This is kind of a sneak preview. I'm actually going to blow away the data and start fresh tomorrow morning. So it's a little preview for the centralohio.net group. So please don't share this link until tomorrow as well. But you can go check it out and kind of see how it works, and then you can claim your spot starting tomorrow. Our upcoming meeting. So tonight we've got Douglas Starnes, who will be talking about Xamarin.Forms. A little warning on this. So we've had some technical difficulties with, I should say Douglas has had some struggles with his ISP. today. So we think we've got it working acceptable. The sound might be a little lower quality than what you normally hear, but we've got it working. So we're glad that he's here and able to present. This is a very interesting topic, I think, for a lot of people. Very highly touted and something we haven't touched on in a while. So we're looking forward to that. November and December, we don't have meetings because the fourth Thursday of the month is right during holidays, both those months. So we're not going to have any live meetings, but do stay tuned to our meetup and our Twitter. We're going to have some interesting things going on there to take the place of our normal, normal holiday gathering type of event. And we've got January signed up already. We've got Jeremy Clark, who'll be presenting a great topic to kick off a brand new year, ASP.NET MVC for absolute beginners, which when January rolls around, it could be a nice refresher, or it could be some brand new stuff, especially with .NET 5 and all that kind of stuff coming out. So you'll definitely want to check that out. That's coming up in January, though. If you are looking to hire, please feel free to use the Twitch chat to say so, to put your email address out there, your LinkedIn, a link to a job posting, whatever you want to do. Feel free to use that chat to network just as normal. If you're looking for a position, also, please feel free to use the chat to do so. Not everyone's comfortable with that because they might be currently employed. They don't want their employer to know that they're looking for a job just yet. So if you want to be a little more discreet, you can email me instead. I'll make that connection. Free of charge, no finder's fee or anything like that. Just a service I'll provide to CONDG people. Email me at mgroves.com. Happy to make that connection to anybody who's in the chat or anybody else who emails me. So feel free to do that during the entire meeting. Network, use the chat room, whatever you want to do, because we can't do that kind of stuff in person right now. So we're just trying to make do. And almost done here. So if you want to help out with the group, if you've got ideas to help promote this meetup or to make things better or whatever you have to do, you want to help find speakers, whatever you'd like. It doesn't have to be a huge commitment. It can just be, a couple emails or discussions here and there. You can contact one of us. So Integer Man is in the chat. You can contact him. You can reach me, of course, at mgroves. I don't know if Alan or Calvin are hanging around lurking right now or live, but you can contact them as well. And again, it doesn't have to be a huge commitment. Just reach out and say, hey, I'd like to help. I think you guys could benefit from this or that. And we're happy to, it doesn't have to be something super formal. You're not signing a contract or anything. Just help us out, and we would definitely appreciate that. If you're new to Twitch, if you're new to this whole virtual meetup thing, just a quick screenshot here. If you're on a desktop, this is kind of how it works. You'll see a little chat box down here, the bottom right of the screen. Once you're logged in, you can actually type in messages. And Douglas says that he will be monitoring this chat, answering questions as they come in. So that'll be great. I can, again, take the night off and just relax and enjoy the presentation. So he'll be monitoring that Twitch chat for any questions that come by. All right, so that's it for now. So I want to go ahead and introduce our speaker for the evening. I'm going to drag him over here to Zoom or to the other screen. I'm going to turn on his audio. So go ahead and share your screen whenever you're ready there, Douglas.
Okay.
And I want to get a quick sound check. Make sure everybody can hear him okay. The volume is loud enough.
What did I do? Okay, here we go. So I need to share my screen. Share my screen. There we go. I want to share this screen here. And tell it to share. Okay, can you see it?
I see your screen. Yes, it's PowerPoint.
Okay.
We're probably not going to see.
Me?
I can hear you just fine. You're not going to see his video because of those bandwidth issues I was talking about. We're kind of.
Hang on, just a second. Yes.
Okay, he must be talking to somebody else in his house right now.
Yeah.
But we're not going to have.
I'm on the phone.
We're not going to have his video feed today because that may take away from what little bandwidth he's actually able to.
I'm sorry. I'm back.
Yeah.
Can you hear me again?
Yeah, I heard you. You didn't mute yourself, by the way.
Oh, I didn't mute myself?
Nope.
Oh, well, okay, sorry.
That's okay, no problem. I was just explaining why we're not going to have a video feed of your glorious face on the screen because of the bandwidth issues.
I'm doing that as a service to humanity.
Okay, so if the sound is okay, looks like it is. Thank you for that follow there. I thought I had that turned off actually. The alert box turned off. Maybe it was just me who heard it.
There we go.
But okay, thank you for the follow. I think we're all good to go. So I'm going to turn myself off the screen here. Another service to humanity. And Douglas, you can take it away, please.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Marcus. Sorry, I had to do that. I'm sorry.
You're not the first person.
Actually, well, no, I'm sorry. Thanks, Matt. I appreciate the invitation and also flexibility tonight to make sure we can still get this off the ground. Actually, I don't know if CodeStock, Brad, who is one of the organizers. It took me about 3 years to remember his name. So I always make up a new name for him now intentionally whenever I see him. So no, it's cool. But thanks everybody for coming in here tonight. Like I said, a little bit of an interesting situation, but I think it'll work out. By the way, I did get all the. I was able to easily remove all of the animations, so everything just appears instead of fades in now. It's actually turned out not to be that hard at all. But so I'm Douglas. I am from Memphis, or from the Memphis, Tennessee area. I actually am about east. I'm east of the city, over in the next county, a little town called Oakland. And one of the things that I do here is I run user groups, or help run user groups. So I'm actually part of several user groups. The Python User Group, which we had last Monday. The .NET group, which we actually have tonight. And then also a Xamarin group, which we will have on Tuesday. So if anybody wants to, and this is actually pretty good timing, is Tuesday night, we will be having our Xamarin group here. It meets at 6 p.m. Central Time, so probably 7 p.m. for most of y'all. And we're just going to be doing we're just going to run through some intro stuff. So, but we're going to do it kind of like a lab. We're going to see how that works. So if you go to Meetup and search for Memphis Xamarin, you should be able to find it. If you can't find it, I'll give you my contact information will be at the end. Just ping me and we'll look at it. And then also a Power Platform user group as well. I help run. So the other things that I do is I also help run a couple of conferences. So it was about 2.5 weeks ago, we had the first ever TDevConf. Matt spoke at that, and also Sean Weitzel, who's lurking around in the chat. So thanks to both of them for that. And also I help run Scenic City Summit which is normally in person in Chattanooga. This year we are doing it virtually for the same reason that TDevConf is virtual, and the same reason that most things are virtual these days. But however, that's going to be 2 weeks from tomorrow. That'll be on Friday, November the 6th. So if you go to, Matt has put the link in the chat, ScenicCitySummit.com. That is free. Normally that is not a free event, but this year it is going to be a free event. So check those out. Also, my day job is I'm a tech author, so I do work for Pluralsight and another company called Real Python. I publish some stuff on Skillshare, and I'm also a Microsoft Most Valuable Professional for developer technologies. So let's go ahead and get started with this here. See how this works. So why this thing called Xamarin? There's several challenges that developers face when they are developing mobile applications. So different APIs. You've got iOS, you've got Android, you still do have Windows, and you're dealing with a different API on each of those. Dealing with different languages. So iOS is going to use most likely Swift, but still some Objective-C holdouts. Android's going to use Kotlin, if not Java. Windows is going to use C#. Different tools: Xcode, Android Studio, Visual Studio, and also you got just different. Also, you just got different devices. Different devices have different capabilities. Some devices have a touch sensor, some don't. Things like that. Xamarin comes in here and tries to level the playing field. So what it does, it enables .NET developers to create applications targeting iOS, Android, and Windows across devices. using virtually the same code base, or at least sharing a lot of code between those devices. So here's kind of what that looks like. You've got at the bottom of this the .NET framework, the base class library, the .NET languages that you know and love. Then on top of that, application logic that's going to be shared. Now, the way that Xamarin works, right? The way that Xamarin works pre-Xamarin.Forms is you could actually get about 70% code reuse across platforms, and that's pretty good. That's pretty good. And we're going to see why that's not so great here, and we'll see why we can do better here in a minute. Yeah, that's right. So a little bit more about why Xamarin is so great. So you may be thinking, okay, I've seen some of this stuff before. Like maybe you've tried PhoneGap or Ionic, which are great, but those are not native necessarily. Xamarin applications are native, so you're going to get the same performance that you would get out of an application written in Swift or Kotlin or Objective-C or Java or C# on Windows. You're also going to get the native look and feel for each platform because it's compiled down, because the code is compiled down to each platform. So you're going to see the same standard layout for a table view that you would on iOS as you would for as the iOS users are going to expect. And these are native applications. Apple will accept applications built with Xamarin. It is, again, everything still has to be compiled on a Mac. It still has to be built on a Mac. Still has to be submitted through the Apple App Store. So Apple will accept them. Now you can develop on both Windows and Mac OS, and you can do cross-platform development as well. You can even build on Windows. Actually, you can't build on Windows. You can develop on Windows. So in Visual Studio, you can actually build and even develop and even preview iOS applications on Windows. Now, the way that you have to do this, you have to have a Mac. So you have to remotely connect to the Mac, and the application will be built on the Mac. And then also, if you started on an emulator on the Mac, you'll see that as well, and you can sort of remote desktop into the emulator running on the Mac and see everything on Windows. And of course, Android will you can develop natively for Android on Windows. And like I just said, you do have that iOS simulator. You can remote into the iOS simulator on Windows as well. Now, there are a number of companies that are using this. This list may be a little bit outdated, but there's just a few here, some of the larger ones. So UPS is using this. Outback Steakhouse has built some apps. Fox Sports, and of course, Microsoft themselves, because Microsoft now owns Xamarin, and that's when Xamarin was made free about 4 years ago? I think 4 or 5 years ago. So let's take a look at a conceptual app here. Let's design a calculator. So if you're going to design a calculator, what are you going to need? Well, you're going to need some kind of display to display the output and the input. And then you're going to need a numeric keypad. And you're going to need some buttons to represent mathematical operations. And then maybe you might want to add some memory or something like that. So this would be kind of the conceptual UI that we might use. And we'd need also some code in the background, so the business logic, if you will. So what we might have is a class to implement, arithmetic operations, and then we also, if we were going to do the calculator, we would have a class to store the memory as well. And we can use this part. This part's going to be cross-platform. This part is not platform specific. We can use this across iOS, Android, and Windows. Let's start looking at the UI. So in the UI, what we're going to do is we're going to use something called UI Kit. And for those buttons, so for those numeric keypads, we would have something called a UI button, and there would be one for each one of them. And then the display, we'd use something called a text field, so to speak. And then down here, I guess I can actually use my mouse here. And then what we would do is we'd catch this event. We would handle this event called touch up inside. So in other words, when somebody touches the button and then lifts their finger off of the button, we'd handle this by taking the text of the UI text field and appending one to the beginning of it. Okay, sounds simple. Problem is, this only works on iOS. This part only works on iOS. And if you go to Android, you're going to have something completely different. So everything is a widget. You've got a button and a text view. And then over here, you've got an identifier associated with each one. You have to call this find view by ID to get a reference to that. This is actually interesting here. For many, many years, if you're using Java, you actually did not have the generic version of this method. You actually had to call this and cast it to the correct version. As of about 1 or 2 years ago, they've actually fixed this in Java. But at any rate, and then once you get down here, the event name is completely different, and then the code here is still relatively the same. But there's a lot of differences. And that's just, this is just the simple stuff. So we've got 2 different namespaces. We've got different names for the user interface elements. We've got all this find view by ID stuff over here. We've got different event names. And then what if we want to implement the history as well? Maybe we want to have a history of our past calculations. Well, we would need to have a list of these. In iOS, what you would have to do is you'd have to add something called a table view, design a prototype cell, yada, 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 go through a whole bunch more stuff. And in Android, you would, I don't know why that shifted down. I think I accidentally, when I was deleting the animations, I accidentally dragged it out of the way, but that'll work. Something called a list view. And instead of a prototype cell, you're going to design a row layout and list adapter and yada, 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 and a whole lot more. Just to display a list of items. And conceptually, it's going to do the exact same thing on iOS and Android. So in other words, you're implementing this UI twice, and this code is not very dry. And don't forget, we still got Windows as well. So that would be yet a third code base that you would have to design, develop, test, maintain. And the only reason you're having to do it is because it's on, because it's on just a different platform. So what we're doing right now is that application, sitting on top of that application logic is our three different UI technologies. And what we're doing is we're using them to create basically the exact same thing. Now you might be thinking at this point, that sounds like Xamarin's not making my job easier. Sounds like it's actually making it more difficult because I have to implement all this stuff multiple times. Let's see, just making sure. So enter Xamarin.Forms. So Xamarin.Forms does not touch anything except the user interface. So it's a cross-platform user interface toolkit. And it works on iOS, Android, and the universal Windows platform. Now, the screenshots that you're going to see tonight are actually from Windows Phone. May it rest in peace. And the reason I left those in there is because otherwise I come up with some spacing issues. But still, between Windows, Universal Windows Platform, UWP, actually Windows 10 Mobile, that's why it was called the Universal Windows Platform, is because the apps for Windows 10 would run on that as well. So you'll still be able to see them. Yes, Windows Phone was awesome. Just too little, too late, unfortunately, to catch up. And then some of this stuff, Tizen, yeah, still out there. Apple TV, I don't know if that ever happened. Mac OS, yes, you can do Mac OS. Apple Watch was rumored. There's actually something, however, that remind me if I don't touch on this at the end, that should be out. What is it? I think I saw the announcement today, or the announcement for the speaker list for the agenda for .NET Conf, which is the 10th through the 12th, so like about 2.5 weeks away. And there's something that I think it's supposed to be released, or at least we're supposed to get some bits when .NET 5 is released. Now, it borrows heavily from WPF. So you're going to see things like XAML. Not exactly Microsoft XAML, heavily inspired by Microsoft XAML. There are some things that I kind of disagree with, that they did design choices, but they're not big deal. They're not a big deal. Things like data binding, MDVM, templates, all these things that you've seen in WPF in the past. A lot of these concepts carry over. So if you've done WPF or UWP, or even back in the day Windows Phone and Silverlight development, you're actually going to be in very good. Don't you think that Xamarin sounds? Let's see here. Don't you think that Xamarin sounds like a prescription for? I hope it doesn't have a long list of scary side effects. Bobcat 1238. We will hopefully. I am hopefully that I will address that. I hope that question will be answered as we go through the presentation. Let's see here. Serious Xamarin programmers pair program from bathtubs outside. Okay. Now, okay, Integer Man, shaking from the Silverlight mention. Let's see here. Let me go ahead and put something up on the screen so you don't think it's frozen. But when I'm talking about Silverlight, I'm just talking about the idea of using XAML and the makeup of using XAML and the XAML and C# separation. There's no Silverlight left, although .NET Core, of course, is based on Silverlight. So we are still using Silverlight. It still lives on in some ways. So what's happening here? Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. So at any rate, we're still starting off like before, even when using Xamarin.Forms as we would with Xamarin. So we got still our .NET-based class library, still got our application logic, and we still got our 3 user interface technologies, except this time, what we're doing is we're replacing that with Xamarin.Forms. So we only write that once, and instead of writing the same code 3 times to do one single thing, we write the same code 1 time to do 3 different things. And this actually gets us up to about 90% code reuse. And we'll see how to handle that 10% before we're done tonight. Okay, so let's take a look at how we might do some of this. So here's basically what the XAML looks like. XAML being Extensible Application Markup Language, which is basically an XML grammar for defining user interfaces. And like I said, that's been around. It's been around for a long time. WPF, Windows Presentation Foundation, I believe, is where it first came around. If you have an executable, oh my gosh. Telerik still, yes. There are Silverlight. There are still Silverlight user interface libraries that are still supported. I think I'm going to mention a company here at the end that still has one. But they definitely have some Xamarin stuff. So taking a look, there's something called a stack layout, and a stack layout does exactly what it suggests. The children inside here are user interface elements as well. So an entry, for example, that's what you'd call a text box, I believe in Microsoft XAML, but it's a text input. And so you give it a name, you give it some hint text, label, just display static text, a switch for representing Boolean values, and then a button that would have that you would touch to make something happen. So if you did this and you showed it in iOS, it would look something like this. Android would look something like this, and UWP, expressed here as Windows Phone, would look something like this. So, but you can see, again, all of them do the same thing. They all have a first name text box, a last name text box, a register button, and so on. But at the same time, they all look like they're native, like a native application would. So you've got you get the flat buttons here, and then the no background here, the rounded switch here, and so on. Take a look at a little bit more. Now, what if we wanted to do something like have that like capture that data and handle when the button is clicked? So we have a clicked event on the button. That's all we need to do. Just one single event across platforms. Again, there's going to be a text property on each of the buttons. There's going to be an isToggle property on the switch. And what's going to happen is it's going in the code again. It'll all look the same. We just hook it up to this function here. And here's what's interesting. Now here's this display alert method. Now this is one thing that I didn't mention earlier about when talking about differences in user interfaces across platforms. Displaying a simple alert message like this one here on iOS. This is actually a very complex, this can be a very complex process, especially if you have to implement it 3 times to do the same thing. All we do with Xamarin.Forms is just simply one time, call display alert, and it will automatically adapt itself across platforms. Let's see here, the HR company. Okay, no questions. Okay. Let's see here. Let's keep going. So how about this? What if we had, and by the way, this application, this demo application, I didn't introduce it. That slide wasn't in there for some reason. Anyway, it's something that I call Conference Barrel. It's basically the concept is a conference management application. So as you can see over here, this would be a registration form for an attendee to register for a particular conference. What we might also need is might have a way for them to pick a T-shirt size. Now on the web, this will be done with something like with a radio button or with a list of radio buttons. Now on mobile applications, user interface or real estate for the user interface is a premium resource. So we have to be very careful how we display that. So use something called a picker control. And we'll see how this looks in here in just a minute. But what we need to do is we need to be able to give this picker a data source of some sort. So again, all we need to do is use the .NET, use the C# list, the generic list that we know and love, and simply add that to the item source for the picker. What's going to happen here is now it's going to show up by default on iOS as what looks like a text box or a text input. But when you tap the text input, it's going to pull up, it's going to rise up from the bottom. It's going to have one of these picker controls that you can then scroll up and down to pick the value that you want. And when you click done, it will place that value inside of this input. And something similar, you're going to have again some kind of input on Android, but this time it's going to pop up as a modal dialog on Android. So, and then on Windows, it'll actually do something. It'll actually come up more like a drop-down list. And excuse the noise downstairs. It is feeding time at the zoo over here. It's supper time over here in Memphis. So, no animals are being tortured during the presentation. But as you can see, again, if you were going to implement this, I'm not going to go through the code here, but if you're going to implement this in each of these, in each of these natively using Swift or Kotlin or C# and XAML for UWP, it would be very, very different. Now, like I said earlier, people sometimes have reservations, they have suspicions about this, and one of the things that you have is sacrificing performance, and I mentioned that already before with PhoneGap. And like I said, like I also emphasized, Xamarin.Forms and Xamarin in general, they will produce native applications. So you're not only going to get that native look and feel that we've seen so far, but you're also still going to get native performance. Take a look at something a little bit more complex. One of the common operations or common tasks in a mobile application is to display a collection or a list of data. In fact, I earlier this year published a course on Pluralsight about displaying lists and collections of data using Xamarin.Forms. So if you want more information about this, you can check that out. But at any rate, what I'm doing here is I'm creating this this list up here, and inside of that list, there's going to be a template for each item inside of the list. Now, remember what I was talking about before when I was talking about the calculator, the history in the calculator, the different things that you had to do across, and this wasn't even looking at the code, this was just conceptually across iOS and Android to get this same thing to work. Here, you've got this one nice XAML file that will do that. So what's going to happen is we're going to, inside of the template, we're going to create something called a view cell, which is basically just a container inside of a list view, and create 2 labels. And we're going to have a place for a first name and a last name. Now, this binding here, I was talking about the data binding earlier. what happens is when I have this list of attendees, and attendees have first names and last names and shirt sizes and meals, whether or not the meals are included, what's going to happen is notice that each one has a first name and a last name. Now, this list here is going to be provided as the item source to my attendee list. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bind the first name and last name properties of the attendees to the text attribute for the labels, so that they will be displayed in the inside of the cells. And here's what it would look something like this on iOS and something like this on Android. And I don't have the I stopped using UWP after a while. So again, one code base, and it's also much simpler. The code, even if the code were just for one single platform, the code's much simpler than you would see on iOS or Kotlin, actually, on iOS or Android using Swift or Kotlin. Here's how it looks inside of Visual Studio. Now, this is actually Visual Studio for Mac. Visual Studio for Windows will work the same way. You're going to actually have 3 projects. So you're going to have a project here for your Xamarin.Forms code. That's what we've been looking at so far. All we've been looking at is Xamarin.Forms code. That'll go in a single project, and then will be used across the platforms. Now, there are still, like I said, this only gets you 90% of the way. So there are still a few times that you do have to go down into a platform-specific project. So there will also be, in this case, an Android, an iOS, and on Windows, you would have the option to create a Windows project as well. Now, in this case, what I'm going to do is I want to add a couple of graphics in here, because what I want to do is I want to add to that list, I want to add an icon that's green if the attendee has picked a meal plan, and red if they have not. And so handling these resources is different across platforms. So in the Android, you have to put it in one of these drawable folders, and then you'll just need to put it down in the resources folder for iOS. Here's another cool trick that you can use with Xamarin.Forms that is also at least inspired by XAML and WPF. Notice that what I want to do is I want to have an image inside of that cell, inside of each cell for the list view, and I want to bind the source of that image to the meals included property of each attendee, which remember is a Boolean. Okay, because here's what our class looks like, and that meals included is a Boolean. But I want to bind the source. I want to have it display the green one if meals included is true, and the red one if meals included is false. Obviously, this is not going to work. So what we'll do is we'll create something called a value converter. The value converter implements the iValue converter interface, and there are 2 methods inside of the iValue converter interface. So the first one is called convert, and the other one's called convert back. Convert basically takes the object, is basically going to take the value from the object, the attendee in this case, and turn it into something else, which in this case is going to be the name of the name of an image. Convert back simply reverses it. Now, in this case, I don't need the convert back. I only need to convert from the bool to the particular from the bool to the particular image name. Then down here inside of the XAML, what I would need to do is inside of the, each page in XAML is called is in something called a content page, and there's resources in there. And a resource dictionary is just a grouping of these different. Sounds like it's playtime downstairs now. So, at any rate. It's just basically a grouping of these different resources. So I've got up here this meal image value converter. I'm going to create an instance of it. I'm going to give it a key that we can use to refer to later on. Then inside of the image, inside of the list view, what I would be able to do is I would be able to say bind to that meals included value in the data source. However, use this converter to convert it to choose a string that would represent the image name. And then we'll get something like this in iOS and something like this in Android. So let's see here. Looks like I do have a question here. So serious question, does Xamarin do everything in code behind? No, oh yeah, Liberty for All, yes, you can definitely implement MVVM. I'm not going to get into that tonight. MVVM is actually the is actually worthy of an entire presentation, an entire book, an entire workshop on its own. But there are a number of the popular MVVM libraries such as Prism or Crossing VVM that you can use along with Model View Model that you can use with Xamarin.Forms. In fact, it's recommended. Okay. What if we want to do something like add a map of the venue for our conference? So, for example, this is where you would actually have to start getting down again into some platform-specific features. So, just like other .NET applications, NuGet packages, everything, all of your anything external is distributed as a NuGet package. Xamarin.Forms itself is distributed as a NuGet package. So if you create a new Xamarin.Forms application, it's very possible that you'll see that you'll have to upgrade Xamarin.Forms. In fact, Xamarin.Forms, I saw today, Xamarin.Forms 5 was released. So there are NuGet packages for Xamarin.Forms that you'll need to add to all your projects, your Xamarin.Forms project and your platform-specific projects, because the maps, depending on which platform you're on, of course, Apple has their maps and Google has their maps, and Windows uses Bing Maps, I guess, still. Each one of those has a different API. So you're going to have the API in the Xamarin.Forms project, which is what you're actually going to use. But that's also going to need to call code that's platform specific, and that's going to be implemented in the platform specific projects. Then you're going to have to do a little bit more platform specific stuff. So whenever you're using a map in iOS, you have to give it a usage description. So what's going to happen is the first time you open that application, to say, hey, I want to, such and such application wants to get your location, and here's why. And the here's why is what that usage subscription is. And there's a file called info.plist that's in every single iOS project that you'll have to fill out. And then Android has something called a manifest. And manifest, there are different permissions. So, can you access the location? Can you access the camera? Can you access the file system? Things like that. Then as far as Android is concerned, you're also going to have to get an API key for the Google Maps API, and then on Windows you probably have to do something similar. You'd have to get for Bing Maps, you'd have to get an API key. So what is this going to look like? This time, this is one time in which we're actually going to have to write a tiny bit of platform-specific code. Now, I do not know why this will not come out in a monospace font, but we'll deal with it. So in here, what you would do is you'd call this Xamarin.Forms maps init method inside of the finished launching method inside of iOS. Now, this finished launching, this is actually something that is platform specific. This is an API that is defined by iOS. So if you were to write a Swift application, you would be able to find a finished launching method on the main application object. Then inside of Android, there's a file called main activity. That is the startup file. And in here, we're going to call, again, that same file, except we're going to have to pass it the bundle this time. But again, like I said, in this case, this is something where you would have to call, get a taste for some platform-specific code. Then you would be able to, what would happen is it would associate the maps, the Xamarin.Forms, the forms elements with Xamarin.Forms maps with a particular namespace. So here it's just using a namespace called maps. And then I can set some properties on it. And then inside of the page itself in the code behind, use that map, and this is where I would be setting the location. But again, what you'll notice here is that if you were using iOS and Android and Windows, you would be using 3 different APIs to do this. And here it's one simple API. Yes, Energy Man. Yes, you're right. It's a standard design pattern in XAML-based applications. Yes, that's correct. And then what we would get something that would look like this. The first time I ever did this presentation was at CodeStock, and I just kept the CodeStock theme. So it would look like this on iOS, and then this on Android. So as you can see here, iOS is using Apple Maps, and Android is using Google Maps. Okay. Navigation. you don't necessarily have you don't necessarily have applications that use just one single page. Single page mobile apps, unlike single page web apps, are not a thing. So in navigation, you want to be able to have a set of pages, and you move back and forth between them. So what you're going to have is you're going to have something called a navigation page in here. And this navigation page is like a container for all of the pages that you want to navigate between. There's a main page in the application. The application itself, the Xamarin.Forms application, has to have a main page, something that it knows to what to show on startup. And instead of what you would do is you would set that to an instance of this navigation page. Then you would be able to pass navigation page instances of your content pages, and those would be the pages that you would actually see. And there's also there's kind of some UI Chrome associated with the navigation page, and that UI Chrome is again tailored to the platform that you're running on, be it iOS, Android, or Windows. Navigating the new pages, simply call push async, pass it the page that you want to push onto the stack, and if you want to, so it's like a stack, and then if you want to go back to a page, simply call pop async. You would end up with something, actually, here's the code, what this would look like. You wouldn't do this in XAML, you'd actually do this in the C# code. So here's your main, here's your main page. And like I said, you're going to assign that to a new instance of navigation page, and conference page would be the content page. So pass a new instance of that in there. See here. Here's something else. So like I said, there's some Chrome associated with each of these within each of these applications. So such as toolbar items. And again, this would be very different APIs across iOS, Android, and Windows. Here, there's just a single one. You just simply have toolbar items for each content page, and then also, and then if you were to click one, you would have again just a click method. This particular one here is actually taking us to a list of attendees. So we would call that navigation property, which is on all content pages, and push async, and it will automatically take the content page that's in there and put it on the stack up in the navigation page. Okay, so here's what would happen. You would have this attendees button up here, this attendees toolbar item. Click it, and you'll get that list that we saw before. And here's your back button. That again. So everything up here is your navigation page, and everything down here is your content page. And again, with Android, it's going to look something like this. Okay, so handling selections inside of the attendee list. So this item selected event is what's handled. Pull for each one. So what we've got is the standard pattern of the object that sent the event, and the item, and also the event args. And the event args has a selected item that is the data item associated with the data item associated with the tapped item. This is an object. You do have to cast it. But after that, what you'd be able to do is you would be able to, again, push yet another page onto the stack. When you pop the page, does it get cached, or are you rebuilding pages all the time? There are ways that you can mitigate that. Yeah. So there are facilities that you can mitigate rebuilding that all the time. I believe, if I understand your correction. Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. So here's another one. There's this a grid. So a grid, you can think of that. Yes, it's a table. And again, if you've worked with WPF or UWP, then you'll see this to be very familiar. Let's see here. Not much different here. Let's see here. Okay. Okay, this is the part I was trying to get to. I'm trying to keep this to an hour, and I think I'm at almost 45 minutes. Matthew, feel free to let me know if I'm going over time. But so that's so what we saw up until now is what you can use for the most part, except for a few little things. Okay, for a few little things, what you're going to do to get to that 90%. We did see a few instances in which you were going to have to thunk into the platform-specific projects. So let's take a little bit. Let's take a. You start charging you extra for every minute. Okay, now we earn our funding. All right. So, at any rate, let's take a look at what we've seen this, and we know that we can get to 90% application logic shared across platforms. And if we include Xamarin.Forms, we can also include the user interface in there as well. But we still got this 10% over here. Something called the dependency service. Now, what we're going to look at is that sometimes you actually have to call in your Xamarin.Forms project application-specific APIs. Or not really that you have to call it, but you have to include code, application-specific code in your Xamarin.Forms project so that you can then write a wrapper API around it, if that makes sense. Now, with the maps, what we did is we had the application-specific code was actually contained in the application-specific projects, and then we were able to access a wrapper from the Xamarin.Forms. But in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to put some Xamarin.Forms. We're going to deal with platform-specific code ourselves. Okay, so the way that we're going to do this is we're going to define an interface that is the Xamarin.Forms API that we want to use. That's the wrapper. And we're going to put that in the Forms project. And then we're going to implement that interface in each of the platform-specific projects. So, and then what we'll do is we'll ask the dependency service inside of the Forms project to select the correct implementation of the interface. So what's this going to look like? So let's say that we want to have, another thing we need to have often in mobile applications is local storage. So SQLite is something that we might use. And in this case, there's this by Frank Kruger, who's just the guy's a wizard all around. But however, he wrote it, and by now I actually don't think I've updated this image since I first wrote the talk. So there's many more. I haven't updated this image since I wrote the talk. So there's many more downloads by now, and the version number is also good. But what this is going to do is you'll need to put this again in each of your in your Xamarin.Forms. Your someone developed software is weird. I didn't say weird. I said I didn't say weird. I said he was a genius or a rock star or something. I forget. But no, I don't think I said weird, but I hope I didn't because this is being recorded. But at any rate, we can edit that out, I guess, if I did have a slip of the tongue. But Frank's not weird. He's a great guy. Any rate, you are going to put this into each of your Xamarin.Forms project and each of your platform-specific projects. And then what you'll want to do is you'll want to create your interface. And in this case, for SQLite, all I'm going to do is all I need to get a connection to a SQLite database. Now, SQLite database, yeah, Rockstar, yeah, awesome. I'll go with that. Rockstar is fine. So in this case, all I need to do is get that connection. Now, if you're not familiar with SQLite, what it is a file-based database. It's not any kind of server. Everything is contained basically a database is a file. Is what it is, and it's very lightweight. And it's great for, and so it makes it great for mobile applications. So I've got this one, and up here, SQLite. I'm using that. That namespace that comes out of those NuGet packages. So this is what I would put in the Forms project. Then inside of the iOS project, what I would need to do is I would right here, this is kind of weird. This is kind of a quirk, is that you actually have to use the namespace before you declare it, but it works. And then down here, the quote platform specific part in this example right here is this environment get folder path environment special folder personal. That's going to be a different path on each device. Now, you're actually going to see that the code itself to Android, except for the namespace, does not change. But the reason why you have to put, but the reason what's happening here is that path is different on each platform. So you're going to have one file in the iOS project and one file in the Android project as well. Then all you would need to do in your Forms project when you wanted to get a connection, you would tell the dependency service to get me an implementation of iSQLite database file. And then you can call that get connection method on it. Okay, let's see here. And then this is just, and then the rest of this is just some, it's just basically showing the implementation of how you would use that. So, maybe for basically what that SQLite package that Frank wrote does, it creates an ORM basically. And so you'd have some kind of a class that represents a table that you go into your Forms project, and then this is just all that wrapper around the SQLite connection. And this would all go in your Forms code, and you wouldn't have to, but it would use the platform specific implementation automatically because of the dependency service, as you can see right up here. Here's something else. Here's another way that we could use the, and then you can also integrate this with all the other things that you saw. So you could have another, so you have a favorite image value converter. So if somebody had favorited a session or something, I'll put all these slides up online if you want to see them. And so you get something like this in iOS, and then something like this in Android. And then there's even more stuff going on here. So this would be, so what this is doing, we're starting to get a little bit closer to MVVM here. This iNotified property change, what that will do is that will watch a specific object for if the value of a property is modified, and then send notifications. In that case, observable collection, what that will actually do is that will watch a collection for in case any of the items in that collection are modified. And you can use that as an item source for your list as well. And then we come to something called Xamarin Essentials. Now, like I said, I just spent several minutes talking about the dependency service. Well, what Xamarin Essentials does is it reduces the need for the dependency service, because the dependency service, depending on what you're trying to implement, can get a little hairy. So what this does, this is actually written by James Montemagno, or it actually started off as an open source project by James Montemagno, and now I think it's actually officially part of. I know that when you create a new Xamarin.Forms application, this is I believe this is by default included now. But at any rate, it has cross-platform APIs for. So let's see here. I got a couple of questions. So Candice Sonardo, how do you apply styling on XAML? Yes, an Integer Man is correct. You have a robust styling framework. Basically, you define those as resources in your XAML, and then so you could say I want buttons to be this size, text, and this color background and such. And then what you would do is you would just apply those styles to the individual elements. Actually, if my Pluralsight course goes into that, I'm not really going to. I don't have any styling examples tonight, but basically it's just XAML. It's just XAML, and you can actually even use CSS. I don't necessarily like how that works, but you can actually use CSS to style Xamarin.Forms as well. So Xamarin Essentials, it's cross-platform APIs for different things, generally hardware features. So, such as an accelerometer. Everybody wants to use, accelerometer. Everyone has an accelerometer in their phone, and the API again for accessing it is going to be very different across platforms. Battery life, email facilities, the flashlight. Hey, it's very popular. I actually use mine all the time. Maps, as we already saw. But there's also another different API inside Xamarin Essentials as well. Making phone calls. Remember, these things do actually make phone calls from time to time. SMS messages, text to speech, and other things as well. So what else is out there? Well, yes, thank you, Tandy Sonario. Yes, thank you very much. So like I've mentioned a couple of times, MVVM, which is like we're talking as is a platform, brings in things like two-way data binding. Custom renderers. If you have a user interface element that you want to build from scratch or something like that, custom renderers basically give you a way to wrap the platform-specific drawing code and get a nice XAML element out of it. Styles. I do actually have styles on here, but styles, like we just talked about, a way to define styles in a resource dictionary and use them use them either in a specific page or application wide. Web services. There's nothing really here, as far as accessing web services. I put it on here because it's something that you're commonly going to do in a mobile application. But accessing web services, you would just use the standard, system.net or system HTTP or whatever, the HTTP client or whatever you would normally use inside the base class library. Or if you wanted to use, a REST, something that was specifically designed for REST APIs or something. Testing. This is where you can. So there are frameworks for testing Xamarin and Xamarin.Forms. And you can also use like mocking frameworks like like Mock-U or something like that you would use for other .NET as well. And then also Xamarin has this thing called a test cloud. And if you want to use something like, and you want to put these through like Azure DevOps or something like that, it'll work as well. But where they have all these different all these different devices. Now this is pretty expensive, is the problem. But they have lots and lots of different devices, and they'll run your application on those devices, take screenshots and such if you want to. Like I said, it is kind of expensive, but if you're really into, if you've got a major client or something, or it's something that's very important to your company, it's definitely worth investing in. And then other things, tooling, this Xamarin Inspector, that thing is pretty cool because what you can do is you can actually get, it was cool when it came out. I think everybody has it now, but I know that iOS has, this has been put into, some of the stuff has been kind of put into Xcode, but the inspector, it'll give you, I'm motioning with my hands as if you can see it, but it'll give you a 3D perspective of the layers of how your application, of the user interface elements of your application. Profiler, you know what a profiler is. And then one other thing I was going to mention here, tooling, something called workbooks, which is really, really awesome. If you've ever worked next to a Jupyter notebook, if you're in the data science and Python, data science and machine learning community, what it is basically an interactive C# session. And the thing is, what you can do is you can have your code, your Xamarin workbook open, and then what it will do is it will create a Xamarin.Forms application. And as you modify the code in the workbook, it will modify it. It'll reflect in the application. I'll talk about hot restart and hot reload here in a minute, but it's actually more interactive than that. It's not meant to just prevent having to rebuild the application every time. It's literally interactive, real time updates. Xamarin.Forms is open source. So Microsoft, like I mentioned earlier, bought Xamarin for what I thought was a real bargain price of what I heard was $400 million. I thought that Xamarin was worth at least $1 billion, but at any rate, they bought it. It was about 2015, rather, not 2005, 2015. And I think that, I think it was about the year, but however, one of the announcements that they made was not only were they open sourcing Xamarin and Xamarin.Forms, but that they were also making it free. And before that, Xamarin was really pricey. It cost like $2,000 per developer per year to use it, or to use it effectively. So, and it's actually MIT licensed. You'll actually see here that they put the MIT license on there. So it is very permissive. Yeah, it's a crazy price, yes. And that's why when I was no longer working for the university anymore, I was quite depressed because I lost my .edu address, and because the student price was like $100 per year per platform, or maybe it was $100 total. I don't know. Tooling. There's lots and lots of different tools out there now. Again, these tools, you only have to use one of them, but there's many, unlike Xcode, Android Studio, and such. So for Windows, you have Visual Studio and all editions. This is another thing when Microsoft bought Xamarin, they included Visual Studio. They included Xamarin in Visual Studio, all of the editions, not just the super duper expensive enterprise. So Visual Studio Community for free, you can write Xamarin and Xamarin.Forms applications. One other thing, just after they bought Xamarin, so for a long time, so there was a project way back in the days before Xamarin, back when it was called like MonoDroid and Mono iOS, or MonoDroid and Mono iOS, I forget, but at any rate, what they were called way back in the day, called MonoTouch. Thank you, Matt. MonoTouch, but how it was called MonoDevelop, and it was based on a project called Sharp Develop. But however, what you had to do is you would write for iOS, and it's been taken down now, but I actually did a demo of this in a user group once. And what you had to do is you had to write your code for iOS in MonoDevelop. And then what you had to do is you actually had to switch to do the user interface. You actually had to switch over to an application called Interface Builder that was provided by Apple. And then what would happen is MonoDevelop would watch for changes in Interface Builder. And so when you would save, your files and your work in Interface Builder, MonoDevelop would actually update the code in the MonoTouch project. And this didn't always work. You actually would save and pray that MonoDevelop picked up the changes. Then when Xamarin, and this actually was for both Mac OS and Windows. And then when Xamarin came around, they took the project and they turned it into Xamarin Studio. And Xamarin Studio was the official IDE for Xamarin. Well, when Microsoft purchased Xamarin, they killed Xamarin Studio on Windows, and they turned Xamarin Studio on the Mac, this is about a year later, into Visual Studio for Mac. Visual Studio for Mac, and if you've ever used Visual Studio for Mac, you'll notice that it's a lot different from Visual Studio on Windows. Really, kind of in some ways, the only thing that they have in common is the name Visual Studio. And the reason for that is because Visual Studio for Mac started live out as Xamarin Studio. Now, feature parity, at first, Visual Studio for Mac was nothing more than Xamarin Studio with some Azure with some Azure window dressing. Now there's a lot. There are many more features that have been. So the feature parity is getting there, but the experience is still quite different. And in the Mac OS version, Visual Studio for Mac does not support Windows applications or building Windows applications. So you can't do a remote build on Windows from the Mac like you can with an iOS application from Windows. And you can share, but the UWP projects will not be available. Okay, JetBrains. In fact, if you win the raffle tonight, you'll be able to get a copy of JetBrains Writer. It is a commercial project now, but this supports not only Xamarin.Forms, but also pretty much any .NET project. Xamarin.Forms, but pretty much any .NET project. And also, this is cross-platform across Mac, Windows, and Linux. JetBrains Writer works on Linux. Now, you cannot develop for Xamarin on Linux, at least not officially and not today. That's hopefully going to change here in a couple of weeks. We'll get to that in just a second. Things like live previews. So for example, live preview, what you can do is you can preview live on a real device. In fact, you can actually plug an iPhone into a Windows machine and get the live preview of the Xamarin.Forms app on the device. The hot reload, which updates user interface automatically as you're coding it, and then this hot restart, which actually by now I think it is out of preview by now. But hot restart, which basically if you change any code behind, this will give you the chance to see those changes live. Across all of these, like I said, you only have to pick one of them because the code and the concepts are going to be the same, but only the tools are going to be different. I'll go ahead and mention this now. So like I said, .NET Conf is, I mentioned earlier, .NET Conf is November 10th through, so what is it? That'll be, 2 weeks from Tuesday. The 10th through the 12th. And one of the things that's going to be announced there is .NET 5. So the convergence, there's a convergence again. And one of the things that they announced at Build this year was a project called MAUI, which stands for, or .NET MAUI, which is .NET Multi-Application User Interface. So you'll see Hawaiian themes around MAUI a lot. MAUI is basically the evolution of Xamarin.Forms. And it's kind of a convergence of Xamarin.Forms in a way. Now Xamarin.Forms is still going to be supported. In fact, like I said, Xamarin.Forms 5 was released today. So they're still putting innovation behind it. They're still going to support it. And one of the reasons is because .NET 5 is not LTS. There's no long-term support for .NET 5. You can go live with it, but but there's no long-term support. We won't get the long-term support we will get long-term support for .NET 6 in November of next year when it's released. So, but at any rate, MAUI, we should be able to at least get some bits in a couple of weeks. And this is, and one of the nice things about MAUI is this list of tooling will be Visual Studio Code. So right now you cannot use Visual Studio Code. Well, you technically could, but it would be a problem. It would be difficult. But there will be official support, so you'll be able to do a .NET New from the command line for MAUI applications, and that'll bring in officially Mac into the fold. There's going to be community support. I believe community support for Linux, so you'll actually be able to do some of this on Linux as well. So somebody mentioned earlier that there are still vendors that are supporting Silverlight components. I think SyncFusion actually still has some Silverlight components out there. But at any rate, we've talked a lot about the user interface tonight, and there are a lot of things that are not included in the user interface library that comes in Xamarin.Forms. So, for example, a data grid. Data grids are very often used. Where all kinds of different visualizations like charts. Where's the one I'm looking? Oh yeah, the tree view, autocomplete. That's the one I was looking for. These are all things that are very often used. Pull to refresh is actually now in Xamarin.Forms. But at any rate, these things are hard to build yourself. If you've ever tried like a calendar, I tried to build a calendar once from scratch, and it's painful. It hurt. Just getting the user interface laid out correctly. But then if you want, like somebody wants to select a range of dates, it's really hard to you have to be very precise with the graphics to do that, and then you have to do it across platforms. But at any rate, SyncFusion, they have this product called, I've totally forgotten what it's called, Ultimate Studio, I believe, is what it's called. But No, it's Essential Studio, but what they do is they provide a community license. I'll go ahead and put this up there. They have a community edition that's free, just like Visual Studio had the, yeah, it is. Building visualizations are even more difficult in Intraman. Or at least I think they would be. But so when Microsoft released Visual Studio Community Edition, SyncFusion looked at this and said, we're going to take all of our UI suites, and we're going to release them as a community edition for free as well. There are restrictions on the use, such as what is it? You have to be making less than $1 million a year, or maybe 100,000. I don't know. It's either 100,000 or $1 million. And you can't have more than 5 developers and things. But if you're doing personal projects for yourself or something, you can actually sell applications in the App Store. Again, as long as you're not making over the revenue amount, you can actually sell these in the app stores and they can actually be paid products. So check that out. Another one, they also have they also have all these Xamarin.Forms templates. There's a number of them. So for example, if you've ever tried to build a chat interface, there's one in there. and this is free, and this is actually open source. The previous one's free, but it's not open source. And I don't believe there's any community license restrictions on this one. Every time I do this talk, I debate whether or not to leave this in here. So this book, the reason why I'm considering pulling out, this book is dated, quite dated. This book is at least, I'd say, 3 years old. That was the last time when there was a Xamarin Evolve. But still, the concepts are still quite similar. So there's still some good stuff in it. But it's about 1,200 pages, and it's by Charles Petzold. Now, if you're not familiar with Charles Petzold, the Programming Windows series of books, back when he was a editor at a computer magazine in Seattle, and Steve Ballmer would bring by, Steve Ballmer actually would come into the office and drop off a great big pile of disks and documentation and of preview releases of Windows. And Petzold would look through this stuff and think, I can explain this stuff better than Microsoft. And the guy became famous with his series of Windows programming books. So that's the other reason that I leave it in there, is because it's just so good. And it's dense in classic Petzold style. If you've read the Windows programming books, you know how dense they are. This book is just as dense. It includes lots of sample code, and it's free. That's the other reason I leave it up there. If you want to go get it, you can go to bit.ly/xforms book. I did leave that link. All right. No framework is perfect. So there are times that you might not want to use Xamarin.Forms. There are a few of those. So if you're binding to native libraries, while you can do it, it's best if you try to stay as single code base as possible. This is possible, but it is possible to bind to native libraries with Xamarin.Forms, but you should probably just stick to Xamarin, straight up Xamarin. Highly customized user interfaces. Yes, we have the custom renderers, but again, it's something that might just be strict Xamarin iOS, Xamarin Android. Again, platform-specific features. Yeah, Xamarin Centers is out there, dependency services out there, but again, don't automatically rely on those things. You might want to think about that. And games. You can build games with Xamarin.Forms. You can build games with Xamarin iOS and Xamarin Android, but there are specific toolkits, namely Unity. I think MonoGame is still out there. That can be used to build games, cross-platform games using .NET. However, here I think this statistic, they're still touting this, about 80% of today's applications. So if you look at like any social media application such as Twitter or Facebook or YouTube, you can build that with Xamarin.Forms very, very easily. And now something like, what's interesting, you might think that the Office applications, the Microsoft Office applications for iOS are written using Xamarin. They're actually written using React Native. Whoa. Okay, that's weird. Matt, do you still hear me? Matt? Okay, my computer just died. My computer it will not come back on.
Okay. Yes. So I can still hear you, Doug. We're seeing a slide, but I'm guessing it's going to be frozen on that slide.
Yeah, it's going to be frozen on that slide. It will not come. I mean, no, my power. I did not lose power. My computer died.
Okay.
Well, that sucks. Okay, I'm having all kinds of technology problems today.
It's one of those days. Yep. There he goes. So. He's still on the phone. That's how we can still hear him. We're actually using regular old phone audio. Do you think you can wrap up with just your slides from memory?
I think that was the last one, except for asking if there were any questions.
Okay. Well, that kind of works out, I guess.
Yeah, and then I had my contact information, which I can here. Let me log into Twitch on my iPad. That is weird because the computer just died. Why? Okay, that's really scary. Okay, hang on. Let me go into Twitch here, and I'll put my contact information in the chat. I don't know. Is that, who cares? That's not a bad idea. Hang on just a second. Now, did my internet die? No, it didn't. I don't understand what's going on today. Okay. All right. So, yeah. So let me go ahead and put chat rules. I got it. Okay. Oh, great. It's going to showing me the ad.
Okay. Well, you're going to get that contact info there in the chat soon.
Yeah.
And if it's okay with you, if you can send me the slides, I can publish those as well, make those available.
As soon as I resuscitate my computer.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed that it's not a major issue.
Well, the way that this day's been going, par for the course.
Yes, we've been struggling. I've only seen a small part of it, but it's been quite a day for Douglas. So
yeah. Okay, so it is Thursday. Tomorrow, Friday the 13th. No, it isn't. I guess Halloween's coming up. Okay, so here we go. Fine. Okay, so let me pause this so I don't hear myself. All right. Okay, so I am at Powered by AltNet on Twitter. I'm Powered by AltNet on Twitter. And then, as you can see, I'm twitch.tv/binary-chef. I will often try to, that's not right. Yeah, thank you, Matt. If my computer is up and running, I will try to do my Friday Xamarin stream tomorrow night, if I can resuscitate my computer. So if anybody has any questions, thanks for the follow, Integer Man. So if anybody has any questions, I will be happy to attempt to answer them, but just keep in mind, I don't have a computer. I have a Mac, but I still have a Mac, but my desktop just died.
I'm going to tweet that. I don't have a computer. I have a Mac.
Oh,
that's a great quote.
No. I love my Mac. I love it even more right now since it's the only one that I have that works. Thanks for the follow, Bobcat 1238.
Okay. All right. So if anyone has any questions, just throw them there in the chat, and Douglas will do his best to try to get them answered. If you follow him on Twitch, then maybe you can drop in one of his streams, and maybe have a chance to answer your question then. Or follow him on Twitter. You can certainly do that as well.
I generally drink. Huh. Okay. Well, my computer did not die. It came unplugged from the power strip.
Ah.
I do not know how that happened, but I just looked underneath. Okay, at any rate, let's see here. Good overview of Xamarin. Okay, thank you, Energy Man.
We've got emotes turned on now, so you can go ahead and throw those emotes in the channel as a round of applause.
And
go ahead and do that.
And there is Stan. Thanks for coming, and the amazing B-Wood. Thanks for coming as well. Huh? That freaks me out.
Well, that's okay. So I'm not seeing any questions in the channel here.
Okay. Gremlins are real.
Yeah, they are.
Tell me about it. That is the strangest thing. Oh boy.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and bring up the.
Cal Hansen, thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, I'm going to bring up the prize giveaway here for us to wrap up. But if you want to hang out for a second, if anyone thinks of questions, go ahead and throw them in there. Looks like Integer Man gave you int max value claps, so that's going to go on for a while.
Now, is that what that means? Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much, Douglas. And what I've got here actually is potentially.
Thanks for the flexibility and the tolerance.
No, not at all. You like to ask stuff, but you're a junior. Absolutely. I mean, in Irachan, I don't think there's any reason not to ask. In fact, we should all be asking questions. Junior, senior, whatever. Yeah. That's how we learn. So don't be shy about asking questions. Go right ahead. I will say, as you're typing that question, though, everyone else, please, this is almost your last chance here to get a message into the Twitch chat to enter to win our prizes here. We've got 2 great prizes. And actually, they're both on the screen right now at the same time, kind of. I've got JetBrains Data Grip, which is their database IDE tool, which is one of the things you can get with your license. And it is set to run a query against Couchbase, which I will be sending you. Second prize will be a little Couchbase swag pack with stickers and cool swag and stuff. And so we're going to actually use Couchbase to pick the winner with this query here. It's going to get all the chat messages, order them randomly, and take the first one. So get your messages into the chat. Bald Bearded Builder wants all the swags. Okay. Welcome, Bald Bearded Builder. I see some other people entered there, so get those in. Does Nir-chan has some questions? I like to know what to ask. That's the problem. Well, whatever comes to mind. Yeah, I mean,
in a chance, if I can jump in, actually a good place if you're a junior and you're just getting started with Xamarin, I would suggest if you can Tuesday of next week to come by my Xamarin group. Again, if you go to Meetup and search for Xamarin Memphis, then you'll be able to find that. I would highly recommend that you do that if you're interested in because we're going to go through just some basic beginner stuff because we've got a lot of people in town who are interested in Xamarin and also just to keep the group going because we've kind of fallen behind a little bit, but yeah, we'll be doing that. So please drop by. Yes, Xamarin Memphis. Yes, that's it.
All right, so I'm going to.
Now,
oh, go ahead.
No, well, excuse me. I was going to mention one more thing. Is that you mentioned the Columbus App Developer Group?
Right.
I'm actually speaking at that next month. I'm doing ML.NET next month for that, actually.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, so there's more. If you didn't get enough of me tonight.
Yep, that was this group here that I plugged. This is the Columbus App
User
Group.
Yes, it is online.
Right there. So I'll put a link to that right there in the chat. I think most user groups, as far as I know, are if they're meeting online. So the ones that I promoted at the beginning of this session, they're all meeting online as far as I know. Which, for better or for worse, right? Okay, so I'm going to call it here in a second. We're going to draw the first prize. So going once and going twice, get your messages into the chat there. This will be for the second place prize, which is Couchbase swag. I think I got a water bottle, I got a lot of stickers, and some other little tchotchkes I'll throw in there. I'll mail them to you. You must be in the United States for me to mail them, please. I can't send them across any sort of oceans. Maybe Canada, but that's about all I can do. So if you are here, please. Whoa, we're getting a little feedback there, Douglas. If you're here, you must be here to win. So if you're here, please say so in the chat when I call your name. And then you can either email it to me or whisper it to me on Twitch. I'll just need your mailing address, where to send your prize. Okay? So here is the first winner. Drum roll, please. This is for the Couchbase swag package. I'll run this query. And Integer Man wins again. Do you wave, Integer Man, or do you want the Couchbase swag? You wave. Okay, we'll try it again. And Integer Man's one of the organizers here. So Liberty for All. Liberty for All. You are the winner of the Couch. Are you still around, Liberty for All? Okay, sweet. You win. So just whisper me your address or email me your address, and I will get that mailed to you very soon, the next day or so. Okay, now this is for the grand prize, and this is a JetBrains license. I will say, if you win the license, please redeem it, because if we have too many licenses that go unredeemed, we may not be getting them in the future. So if you win, please just redeem the license or give it to somebody who is going to. We ask you, please do that. So you can redeem this for any sort of JetBrains tool, so Data Grip, the writer is what Douglas mentioned. You can redeem it for ReSharper, all kinds of great stuff. whatever language you're using, whatever you're
PyCharm.
building, PyCharm, sure, whatever you're building,
I gotta
JetBrains
get my
has something
Python
for
love
you.
in there.
Gotta get your Python plugin. PHP Storm, WebStorm, those are great tools I've used before. So please go ahead and use one of these licenses. They're actually pretty expensive licenses, especially if you're like on a student's income. These are some great enterprise level tools you can start using. So, all right, drum roll, please. Here is the winner of the JetBrains license, and it is Rick Michaels. Rick Michaels, are you still around? Say hello in the chat, please, Rick Michaels. I don't need your mailing address for this, by the way. I just need an email address. Rick Michaels, are you still there? Not in your list of users. Okay, well, going once for Rick Michaels. Going twice for Rick Michaels. Okay. We're going to draw another one. Here we go. Integer man again. Oh, gosh.
I think this thing is rigged.
All right, we're gonna try it again. This is not the first time this has happened. Let's do it again. Chibi Love. Chibi Love. I remember talking to Chibi Love at the beginning. Are you still around, Chibi Love? Chibi Love. Okay, Chibi Love. Please whisper or send me your email address, and I will get you a JetBrains license in the near future. It may be a couple days, actually. We're having some technical difficulties with that as well. It's one of those kinds of weeks, I guess. But we'll get it to you. So please whisper or email me your email address, and I will get you that license. Okay, well, that's it. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. This is a picture of Douglas here because we don't have his video feed. But I think it went okay. What do you think, Douglas? The technical problems, we still managed to get a pretty good session.
We got it. My computer coming unplugged was definitely not what I expected. I expected the internet to freak out on me, if anything. And by the way, if you haven't had enough .NET tonight, .NET User Group tonight, you can go see the Memphis .NET User Group, which started 6 minutes ago, actually. So there's actually another one.
There you go.
And that one, I believe we got Rob Richardson there tonight. I believe we have.
Oh no, Integer Man got a blue screen of death during the presentation.
Oh, okay.
It's just one of those days. This day is cursed, but we made it work anyway.
Yes.
I think we've been lucky so far with our remote presenters. We haven't had any major crashes or internet outages or anything like that.
So nobody's been working than me. Good.
Well, I mean, it's just a matter of time before it happens, right?
Yeah, I know. But that was really, really strange when I couldn't turn it back on. That was strange.
That's okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us, and you're getting lots of claps and smiley faces, and
okay.
I'm going to let you get to the Memphis group now.
Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate it.
All right. Okay, and how do I do this? I want to end this one with him. All right, thank you very much for joining us here at CONDG. This is going to be posted to the YouTube channel soon, a couple days maybe. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let me put that up on the screen here because it's a bit.ly URL, so I'll just copy and paste this one. Please subscribe so that we can get ourselves a real URL, a YouTube/CONDG or something like that. So appreciate if you do that. And so look on that channel for this upcoming video. And that's it. So I'm going to shut it on down. I'll leave the stream open for a little bit, but no sound or video, just in case you all want to chat a little more. Then I'll shut down in a few minutes. All right. So thank you very much for coming, and hope you all have a good week.